have this strategy called hardballing where I want you to actually tell people, message people on your app before you go on a date, hey, I'm looking for a long-term relationship and I want to start a family in X number of years. If that's not what you're looking for, that's totally cool. But I just want to be upfront and respect your time. How can you get confident just repelling people? Like, I want your profile to be this very strong magnet. And I know we all studied physics. So if you have something out there that's just kind of generic or you think that this is what people will like, that's kind of a weak magnet. So I want you to create something that's really strong so that the people who really are into you're going to be even more excited and you're going to repel all the people who are irrelevant.
Today I'm talking with Joyce Zhang, former Stripe engineer turned dating coach. She'll tell you why your standards are too low and why dating apps actually work if you understand the real bottleneck is self-love. Before we get to today's episode, please note, this information is for general educational purposes only and is not a recommendation to buy, hold, or sell any investment or financial product. Turpentine is an acquisition of A16Z Holdings LLC and is not a bank, investment advisor, or broker-dealer. This podcast includes paid promotional advertisements, and individuals and companies featured or advertised during this podcast are not endorsing AH Capital or any of its affiliates, including but not limited to A16Z Perennial Management LP. Similarly, Turpentine is not endorsing affiliates, individuals, or any entities featured on this podcast. All investments involve risk, including the possible loss of capital. Past performance is no guarantee of future results, and the opinions presented cannot be viewed as an indicator of future performance. Before making decisions with legal, tax, or accounting effects, you should consult appropriate professionals. Information is from sources deemed reliable on the date of publication, but Turpentine does not guarantee its accuracy. Now let's get started. Joyce, welcome to the podcast. Thanks so much for joining.
Thank you, Erik, for having me.
So Joyce, you are a dating coach. You had a tech career, most recently at Stripe, and you decided to go full-time becoming a dating coach. Why don't you talk more about what that means? What exactly is your practice? How you sort of situate yourself in the ecosystem?
Great question. The easiest analogy I have to what a dating coach does is that instead of just giving people fish like an app or a matchmaker might, I teach people how to fish and, of course, how to cook the fish.
And so how did you yourself learn this, or what is your journey to becoming a dating coach?
Yeah, there are so many inspirations, but when I was single for 5 very long years, I really struggled with dating. I probably swiped through thousands of profiles, watched hundreds of hours of dating podcasts, books. I was just trying everything I could, went to multiple dating classes. I even hired my own dating coach and multiple of them, tried them out. And I just really just hacked my own way through this whole process, taking everything I learned from Stripe and BCG and MIT to figure it out. And in reflecting on that experience, I really don't want my pain to be in vain because it was really hard. It doesn't need to be this hard for everyone. And I think the thing that I hadn't seen a lot of people talk about is the actual strategy of dating and how do I get coaching on my own strategy, not just here's how to make the perfect profile. So that's what I really wanted to bring to life. So I started coaching folks and realized that I just deeply, deeply love helping people with this.
So what is dating strategy, or what do you talk to your clients? What types of conversations do you have? How does it work?
Yeah. So people come to me with questions like, I've been on so many dates. Why are none of them working? Or I have really hard time. I'm going to use some sales terms, some top of funnel issues. They're like, oh, I'm not meeting enough people who are aligned. They ask me wondering, oh my God, are my standards too high? So it's a lot of questions where people have already tried a bunch of different ways of improving their dating life, but they're feeling really stuck. And that's usually the time when people are open to coaching and my help.
Yeah. Well, first we'll get into some of your frameworks and then we'll get into the specifics of how you help them there. So one idea you believe is that dating apps are actually great. When you explain this, because there's dating app fatigue, people hate them, et cetera.
Yes, I've heard so much about dating app fatigue, and I totally hear that because I myself was burnt out at one point from dating apps. So I stopped dating for an entire year, which I actually think was so harmful looking back on it because I really could have made so much more progress or just learned more about myself. And what I really think is the issue is that people don't have a great strategy for actually getting on great dates. So the app itself is actually just such an efficient way to meet people. I work with a lot of high performers, so people who are working in really busy professional careers, and they're really concerned about how much time they're spending on this. So if you think across the three main sourcing channels, which are dating apps, meeting people in real life, and setups, dating apps certainly have the highest ROI of time that you put in and the output that you get. And I can say more about the actual strategy of it, but if you just look at a pure ROI calculation, apps are definitely a great way to go. And it is one of the most frequent ways I hear people getting into serious relationships now. Like if I think about in the past 10 months, I helped create 5 new relationships. 3 of them were from a dating app. So it really is helpful if you have the right strategy.
Okay, so say more about strategy in terms of like, what do people who work with you do differently than people just on their own?
Yeah, so every step of the process is extremely intentional. I remember a client I was coaching recently, and they were describing about how the way they used dating apps before was just, oh, I'll just put up a profile and swipe and see what happens. But I'm now helping them create more intention every step. So I can walk you through what that looks like. So if you were to look through, and I have this method called inbox zero hinge. So if you look at a hinge app, there's the bar on the bottom, right? Where it's first your profile and then the messages and all that. So the very first step, we go and audit their profile. How are you representing yourself? How much thought are you putting into your prompt? What kind of relationship are you looking for? How much of that is expressed? Is this really showing your best self and what you want your vision of your life with your partner to be? How is that showing up? We audit your filters. Then we look at, and I swipe live with people too. I watch them swipe. See, how do you actually make this decision? Because most people are pretty, and I was certainly guilty of this too, just kind of mindlessly swiping back and forth. And I help them get a rigorous strategy for these are the reasons why I'm swiping on each person or passing on them. And then here are all the different things I'm going to ask in conversation so that I can make a clear decision about whether this person meets my bar for going on a date with someone. So it's just bringing much more intention and strategy to the act of swiping.
And so, what common mistakes do you see people make for people who put effort into it and try to make a great profile? What are common mistakes or non-obvious mistakes that you're correcting, or behaviors that you're editing with your clients?
Yeah, I saw this a lot both for myself and for my clients where people are really focused on the marketing aspect, where they're just like, oh, I got to write something funny or unique or ask a question that people want to answer. And I think that is part of it, showcasing something unique that's kind of like bait. But what I think people miss is you want to show this person what is your vision for actually being with this person. So even if I see the most well thought out prompts, a lot of time they're only talking about yourself rather than the 3 things I recommend for prompts are what is one relationship non-negotiable you have? Maybe you really value vulnerable communication or sharing your community. The second piece is your life vision. What do you want your life with your partner to look like? Do you really care about having a family or building a farm? I don't know. And the last piece is what is your day to day vision look like for your future partnership? Do you want to be going on trips all the time? Are you really a homebody? So that is what I want people to convey so that when your future partner is looking at your profile, they're like, oh, like I could fit into that vision of your life rather than, okay, here's this person. And now I'm in this judging mode of, do I like what they're having to say?
Got it. So part of it is presenting yourself better, the way that is more likely to attract the type of person that you want. And then part of it is also filtering out on the front end on a values basis, the type of person that that you're desiring to attract. So self-selecting out the people who aren't.
Yes, exactly. I was saying I really love specifically what you pulled out with the values piece because I think that's the piece that people are missing. I see a lot of lists. I like hiking, reading, and running, and I go to all these conferences, maybe, I don't know. Versus I really value kindness, humility. I love it when people ask me great questions. That's what I want to get to know about you. I want to know why you chose the way you did your career in this way. That's what people really want to hear about. So I think bringing out some of the values piece is important. I think the other piece, which I think you were alluding to toward the end, was how can you get confident just repelling people? Like, I want your profile to be this very strong magnet. And I know we all studied physics. So if you have something out there that's just kind of generic or you think that this is what people will like, that's kind of a weak magnet. So I want you to create something that's really strong so that the people who really are into you are going to be even more excited and you're going to repel all the people who are irrelevant. But that can be kind of scary for people at first because they're like, oh, shoot, I'm not going to get as many dates.
Totally. In terms of attracting people, like what converts best, or like what other common advice or non-obvious advice do you get, whether it's on photos or otherwise, like that will make them more attractive to the people that they want to attract?
Yeah. I think there's a lot of dating app basics that I recommend people to do, whether it's having a clear headshot as your first profile picture and then a full body shot, at least one with your friends. But I think just using the captions and the prompts to share much more of your personality goes a long way. So instead of just having like 5 really cute selfies of yourself, can you show me you doing some cooking or you doing motorcycling? What does it actually look like to be in your life? And can you effectively use the captions and the prompts as extra space for you to tell me even more about yourself so that when I look at this profile, it's a rich biography.
Yeah, makes sense. One idea you also have, going back to the filtering, is this idea that people's standards are actually too low. Is that right? Talk about how you sort of advise people in terms of what to look. You mentioned the list approach, but actually, like, talk more about sort of how you advise that on that side of things.
Yeah, yeah. I will say that this might be specific to the demographic I'm coaching, specifically other high performers who worked at places like Stripe. And what I see is that people are really focused on what I would describe as resume qualities. Oh, like, are my standards too high because I want this specific school or this specific job? And I think, well, two things. One is that those don't actually necessarily correlate with how you actually want to feel. So I help people figure out what are your North Star feelings? When you close your eyes, when you envision yourself with your future partner, how do you actually want to feel? And those things are like, I want to feel loved. I want to feel supported. I want to feel seen. I want to feel understood every day. And many combinations of external characteristics can correlate with that. So when I say people standards are too low, what I mean is that they're looking for, okay, they check these boxes. Okay, I guess I should go on a date with them. I see this all the time when I swipe with people or I see them message. Like, oh, I should go on a date because they check these things that I think I'm looking for. What I want people to do instead, I have this strategy called hardballing where I want you to actually tell people, message people on your app whenever you, before you go on a date, hey, I'm looking for a long term relationship and I want to start a family in X number of years. If that's not what you're looking for, that's totally cool. But I just want to be upfront and respect your time. That's actually one getting at actual life partner compatibility. And more important than that, based on their response, you can see how they will treat you as a partner. Do they respond to you with respect, openness, care? Do they share more about themselves, or are they just like, okay, LOL, me too? It's a very different way of communicating. And I want to see how someone actually treats me rather than, okay, they have these things that I ostensibly want.
Right. Say more about, once the match does happen, how you think about communication.
And you mean the match on the app and then
Yeah.
your messaging.
Yeah.
Okay. I posted something about how to send a compelling opener because the most common thing I see in terms of the messaging that people get stuck on is having high level conversations. So it's high level conversations, and this, I appreciate people's bias to action. They want to get on a date quickly. That's great. But there's so much more information you could be getting through the messaging before you go on the app. So even beside my hardballing piece, actually just sharing what your intentions are for a relationship, just asking some deeper questions is something that I think people know how to do, but they just need to be reminded. So, for example, people love talking about travel. They're always like, yeah, I'm just all across all these continents, so great. Instead of asking people, what's the next trip you're going on? Ask them, why is traveling so important to you? What do you love learning about other people's cultures? How do you envision sharing that with a partner? Asking at least just one or two of those questions before you decide to invest your whole evening with someone can make a huge difference and save you from those feelings after a date where you're like, oh my God, I really could have just hung out with my friends instead.
Yeah. So you don't, no phone pre-screen. You say just go straight to the date.
That's a great question. I actually think it really depends on the client. So, for some people who still don't feel like they have a really strong way of asking those questions over text, or they're still trying to figure out what their intuition is for people, if they feel comfortable asking for a phone date, I recommend it. But I think if you are able to conduct a really meaningful conversation over text, you may or may not need the phone call later on.
Yeah, that's interesting. We'll get right back to the conversation after a word from our sponsors. Modern Relationships is sponsored by Relationship Hero, your personal relationship coach. It's an open secret in Silicon Valley that people are using these relationship coaches. Over 100,000 users are happy they tried Relationship Hero. You might be wondering, what is it like to talk to a relationship coach? Well, here's Jackie Pugh, a senior coach at Relationship Hero.
That's a really good question. Okay, I actually just got off a call with a client who was getting mixed signals from his ex. So she's the one that broke up with him, but then she kept sending him these really heartfelt, long, emotional messages at midnight. And then in the morning would act like nothing ever happened.
We've all been there. How do you recommend handling something like that?
So what we would do is we would want to hear exactly what's going on so we can help discern, is my client's ex, is she just trying to process her emotions and she's doing it via text message? Is she potentially trying to keep my client on the back burner? Or is she actually trying to reconnect? And if she is, then I help my client decide, is this something that he actually wants to do, reconnect? And if so, why?
Thanks, Jackie. If you want to try your first one-on-one or couples coaching session, go to relationshiphero.com/modern. You'll get $50 off your first session if you use our link. Again, that's relationshiphero.com/modern. You mentioned you watch your clients swipe. Say more about what that looks like. Like, what are you editing or like, what are you observing and then giving feedback on in terms of what they should be maybe evolving?
Yeah, so you can visualize this. It's literally me and the client in the same Zoom room, and they have their phone joining the room as well. And when they start with the profiles, I ask them first to just tell me your entire inner monologue that's happening. No judgment. I promise whatever you're thinking, I might be thinking the same. How are you making this decision? And so a lot of people have never done that. Even if they swipe with friends, they don't really say what's honestly on their mind. So just walking through, like, what is the actual decision criteria that they have? And I want to get them to a clear set of criteria. For example, some people might fall in the camp of, oh, they're not judgmental or like critical enough. They're like, oh, well, I didn't really think that they're physically cute, but like, I guess they said some of the right things on this. I'm like, well, if physical attraction is really important to you, let's stay honest and true to that and let's not do that. Or if someone's like, oh, they look really, really hot and they have a great resume, I don't think I'm getting that much from their prompts. They just put like a one word answer. I'm like, okay, if you think about your future partner, does this look like their profile? And they're like, okay, I guess that's not the person. So just bringing a lot more intention to this. Is this actually someone who you could see yourself dating for 50 years? Is the question I try to remind people of.
You don't think there are great people out there who just kind of like, put a profile together, but don't quite put that much work into it?
Yeah, so I think that's a great question, and I generally see profiles, if you're the one swiping or reviewing, falling into, let's say, three buckets for you. There's like some that are clear no's. Let's say that you want to have children. This person already indicated they don't want to have children. Great, let's just move on. Then there's people who are definite. Yes, you're like, oh my god, this profile is just like angels singing in my mind. And then there's some that fall in the maybe the middle category where you're like, oh, I really love their pictures. They seem really happy as a person, but I'm not getting much from their prompts. What I would then ask them is like, okay, think of all of this as your investment in your time. Are you willing to spend the 60 seconds it takes to write them a customized comment and to try to message with them back and forth, ask them some questions, see what happens? If you're like, oh yeah, I could spend some time and I could get curious about them, yeah, that seems fine. Great. If you're not even curious enough to spend that effort, then probably this isn't your person.
And you work with men and women, right?
Yes.
And so just on the partner selection stuff more generally, is there common advice that you sort of is different for men and women in terms of like either failure patterns or just ways that you think about how the different genders should be thinking about what they're looking for? I mean, you mentioned one thing already, you mentioned the resume sort of, but the North Star, it might be hard to tell, like, I want to feel loved, I want to feel supported. You mentioned it's like maybe hard to tell from a profile or something.
Yeah, the North Star feelings might be a little bit harder to do that. That I feel comes out more in the conversation, the actual relationship that's starting to be created by the two people. For the genders, it's so interesting because people always think that I have very gender specific advice, but I really see across the many clients that I've coached, now over 100 people I've spoken with, that there are 3 common problems across everyone. 1, people don't know what they need. 2, they don't believe they can get what they need. And 3, they don't have the tools to find someone who will meet their needs. And that's fundamental to everyone. I think some of the areas where there might be some nuances, which I find interesting. I have some people say, like, if they're a guy, like, oh, but like women will think it's really weird if I want to do a phone screen. I'm like, well, I've coached a lot of women who would love that intentionality, or women who come and tell me, like, well, like, maybe I'm not like, maybe I just need to be more funny, or I need to bring out this certain thing on my profile. Like, guys are always like this. And whenever I hear guys or girls are always like this, I try to come back to what is in your control and what can you do, rather than, okay, here's what men and women are like. The last thing I might say here is that the one nuance that I might see sometimes playing a bit into societal norms is that some women I coach may not be as excited to proactively ask people out. And I can understand that. If that's how you want to show up and that's what feels best for you, that's okay. And so in those cases, and it could be men too, where you don't want to be so forward, I give them ways to express interest without being as forward as they might feel comfortable with. So that's the only nuance that I've really seen and intentionally coach people on.
Let's go through you mentioned sort of the 3 things you think of. You say people don't know what they need, they don't have the tools to get what they need, and then is the discipline, or what was the third?
They don't know what they need. They don't believe they will get their needs met, and they don't have the tools to find people who will meet their needs.
Can you flush those 3 out? So say more about they don't know what they need. Like what does it look like when they don't know? How does one help them find it? And what does it look like when they know what they need?
Yeah. So for the first one, when people don't know what they need, what I often see is that, oh, I want someone who's smart. So maybe they've won an IMO gold medal, or they've worked at this place, or I need someone who's really funny and shares the exact same humor as me. And what I move to them instead is, one, again, focus. What are your North Star feelings? You want to feel intellectually stimulated. You want to feel curious. And so how can you choose people that bring out that best side of you, instead of, oh, I'm going to approximate resume for the thing that I actually want to feel? Because everything we do in life is because we want to feel a certain way. I get a certain job because I want to feel financially stable. I want to feel smart. I get a partner because I want to feel loved and supported. So I want people to come back to themselves and focus on that. The other thing I've seen with people as well is that they're not focused enough. And this is tying back to something we talked about before, where I think people can actually raise their standards. People are not focused enough on what did not work in past relationships and intentionally looking for the opposite to be true going forward. So this is using some, if I think your audience might resonate with this, first principles thinking. So I literally have people make a list of the 10 things that did not work for you in past relationships. So for example, they did not prioritize me. They were not vulnerable enough. They did not have growth mindset. And I asked them to write the flip of that. They prioritize me. They have growth mindset. They are vulnerable. I want you to ask questions on every single date to see if this person will actually meet that need. So that is a level of rigor I'm helping people bring to, versus, oh, okay, I guess they went to a similar school and a job, and I guess this could work out.
Yeah. Share more about what are kind of the North Star feelings that your clients tend to have, just as examples, because when I hear them, I'm like, oh, everyone wants to feel loved. Everyone wants to feel stimulated. Everyone, so it's kind of like, how do you, it's kind of a broader question of like, when people ask, what's your type or what are you looking for? It's kind of like, it's a hard question to answer. Right. And so how do you help people get more sort of sophisticated, or should people actually be like more open-minded?
Yeah, that's a great question. I often ask people in sessions to just close their eyes and imagine them 10 years from now. They're in their perfect relationship. They have a beautiful family, whatever family means for them. And they're just feeling so in love every day. Like, what do they actually feel like inside? And I think the other way to triangulate at this, because a lot of people may not have done that more meditative, reflective exercise, just pay attention to, how do you feel when you're with your friends? Usually people are able to come up with a pretty immediate response from that. Like, oh, I feel really smart, and I feel really funny, and I feel I feel really, like they really understand how intense or quirky I am. And that's what I want them to bring out. Like, at baseline, you want to feel at least as good about yourself as you do with your closest loved family and friends. So can that at least be the baseline? And then can we build on from there with your future vision? So those are a couple of exercises I do, and your audience can do that as well, to figure out what those North Star feelings might be.
That makes sense. When people come up to you and they're like, "Hey, I have this type," are you like, "Oh, okay, let's find you someone who fits those?" Usually, I guess when people say type, they mean like physical type. How do you interpret that? Like, are you like, "Oh, let's find someone who satisfies that," or are you like, "Hey, maybe physical type isn't like totally everything. Maybe you should open, expand your physical type because maybe that isn't everything, and maybe it's hard to find. Why artificially constrain? How do you think about that?
So when I hear people say they have a type, I always get really curious about that for two reasons. One is if you had a type and you continue dating this type of person, clearly it has not worked out. So the person you actually end up with will probably be different in a way that you didn't expect. So I think that's certainly one thing to get curious about. To make that actually actionable then is coming back to what I described. It could be, I mean, I've worked with people who describe themselves more as demisexual too, so it's not always physical type. Maybe it's more like I literally had someone tell me before, like, oh, I always date people who are of this body type or like they won this kind of award and I'm really into those kind of people. I just, again, always come back to how do you want to feel about yourself? Oh, I want to feel intellectually stimulated. There are people who could have been the next Albert Einstein and you don't actually feel intellectually stimulated around them. And there's someone who doesn't have that and you do. So can you choose the version of yourself rather than the other person? That's what I try to bring them back to.
And what do you say to someone who's like, yeah, but the heart wants what it wants? I guess one thing you could say is, well, does the heart want to be alone? Because it feels like, life that you keep seeking is not leading to what you want. So I guess you could say that.
Yeah, it's a great question. I have an idea where to riff on. Are you interested perhaps in going perhaps along the physical intimacy lines? Because that's what I hear when you say the heart wants what it wants.
Or just people want people who are bad for them, or not bad, but just unlikely to lead to what they
Mm-hmm.
think they want or claim they want, which is like a long-standing relationship. Maybe they want some chaos or drama or someone who's not ready or something.
Yeah, yeah.
But also happy to go into physical intimacy stuff as well.
Maybe I'll touch on the drama first and then we can talk about physical. For the drama piece, I mean, one of the North Star feelings that comes up often, and I usually suggest it if they don't proactively bring it up, is that feeling of peace and safety and home. Like they can really be safe to be themselves around this person. And I think people can say that and articulate that in a session. And then I'm keeping them accountable every time we meet. Okay, you said your North Star feelings are these three. When you think about this date you just went on, how do you feel? Even if you just look at this text conversation, how do you feel? Or you have this list of non-negotiable. You already told me you want someone who can be very vulnerable, who prioritizes you. How does the behavior that you are seeing from this person match up with them? They're like, oh shoot, I really do got to live by what I said. And one funny way I've thought about this is it's like writing your own sober commandments. Because love can be very intoxicating.
Oh yeah.
And sometimes it's kind of like you're under the influence. So while you're sober, you're in coaching with me. Can you write down those things that you know and you're deep in your intuition that you want? And how can you keep yourself accountable to that so that when you are in the beautiful infatuation of love with someone you're really excited about, you are keeping true to what is actually going to make you happy over 50 years, not over 5 dates. And then on the physical piece, what I've really had an interesting time doing with some folks, and I recognize that this is different for each person, but some people do understand that, oh yeah, like when I get physically attracted to someone, I don't think quite clearly. And so what I want people to do is to grow physical and emotional attraction together. I don't want the lines to intersect at a crazy point where the physical attraction just completely clouding your judgment. And so in order to do that, I have people write out a literal sex protocol. These are my standards for how I want to progress physical intimacy. This might look like I give myself permission to wait until the third date to kiss someone. This means that I might ask someone to get tested before I move to that next step, or I give myself a certain number of days so that you can stay sober long enough for you to do the sincere assessment and getting to know someone to make you feel safe emotionally first before you then escalate physically.
So you recommend people kind of on the first date say something like, "Hey, not to be presumptuous, but here's my sex protocol." I'm just joking.
I mean, if that feels authentic to you, then great. But I don't think you have to do that to actually enforce it.
I'm just teasing.
I
The
know.
say more. Okay, so we talked about the people don't know what they need. Say more about the people don't believe they deserve or they can get with.
Mm,
So yeah, what's the bottleneck here? Or
yeah.
what does this look like?
I have this whole list of common limiting dating beliefs. It looks like I'm not good enough. I'm not pretty, attractive, old, young, successful, rich enough. It could be about other people. All the good ones are taken. I have to get the bottom of the barrel. I don't know if I will ever find this perfect person. I have to settle. And so, what I have them do, I show them this list. And when you read it, if you have any sort of emotional reaction, and you as a listener can notice yourself if you've heard that statement, you felt something inside too, if you have any sort of reaction to this where you are not 100% sure this is true, this is a potential limiting belief for us to work through. So I first identified those. I'm going to talk about how to change them too.
Yeah, how do you change them?
So hopefully this resonates with the people who love you, but I help them reprogram it. So I literally have them imagine, okay, it's like you have this piece of code in your brain. At some point in your life, this bug was introduced as a line in your code. And now every time you execute this program that tells you, where you tell yourself how to look at yourself or other people, this bug is running. And so what I want you to do is to get in there, identify that line that you want to extricate, remove it, and replace it with something else. And so that can look as honestly as basic as daily affirmation. So if the thing that you are really stuck on is I'm not good enough, I want you to make a list of the 10 things that you deeply love about yourself. I'm incredibly beautiful. I'm super smart. I'm an amazing person to my friend. And I want you to recite that in the mirror every day. Or you can record yourself saying it and listen to it every morning. I've actually done that before. Very powerful. So that's one way of doing it. I think the other way, if people are just really stuck in there, is to just get logical. How is having this belief affecting your decisions? And when you realize, like, oh, having this belief or like staying in this like worried or self-critical energy is just inner violence, you can just choose a different action and replace those thoughts. I think of all the thoughts in our mind as like a garden. And so if you want to build yourself up as this beautiful tree, this beautiful flower, you need to take out all the weeds in your garden so that something new and beautiful can grow. So just letting go of beliefs whenever you have them is super powerful.
Yeah, this is about to get into pop spirituality, but this
Oh yeah.
which I have no problem doing. There's this woman, Byron Katie, who she has this like 4-question framework to evaluating a belief, which is: 1, is it true? 2,
Yep.
is it really? Are you like 100% sure it's true? 3 is, how does this belief make you feel? And then 4 is like, what would you feel if you didn't have this belief, or if you had the opposite of the belief? And
Yeah.
typically the progression goes like, number 1, is it true? You're like, yeah. Number 2 is, are you like sure it's true? And you're like, no, I'm not, I'm not sure it's true. 3 is, how does it make me feel? It makes me feel, bad, small, isolated, etc.
Mhm.
Who would I be without this thought? I'd be, the happy,
Yeah.
free, open, accepting.
Yeah.
And so then it gets to some awareness of like, wow, this belief is really, really setting me back, and maybe accelerates the desire to reprogram, as you said.
I have heard frameworks like that. I think there's a lot of power to them. The way I might adjust that, and it is unique to each client because some people will tend to debate it more rather than just like move on to it. So it really depends. But I think taking the first 2 questions, I have found sometimes that to be helpful. Like, is this true? But another way that I think maybe it might not be as helpful is that asking whether it's true is almost like validating it. So instead of giving space for that, I just letting all of that go, like where does it come from, or just really trying to like give it more energy. It's almost like we're growing this fire of the specific belief that I'm not enough. Focusing more on how is this actually helping you just objectively. Like what is the ROI of having this thought? And coming back to the North Star feelings, okay, I want to feel confident, calm, and supported every day. How is this thought helping you do that? Okay, if it's not, then like what is a thought that helps you feel more confident, calm, and supported every day? So as a coach, I might be really biased. I'm more focused on the action rather than like validating the thought or like really trying to dwell in that place. But sometimes people want it, and I try to meet people where they are.
You probably tend to work with people who are very heady, in their heads, sometimes
Yeah.
overthinkers, maybe not as much in their body. Do you have any advice, or what do you tell people like this?
I love this question. I think I read in one of your Substack posts that you've done some somatic work, so it certainly resonates with me. I do start off all of my calls with a meditation. And I try to choose meditations that are very visual and relate to what the client is struggling with at the moment. For example, if I really want them to embody confidence, I might focus on that. And in everything that they do, this includes when they're swiping, I just pause and ask them, how are you feeling right now in your body when you're looking at this profile? After this day, how did you feel? So I think just developing that muscle can be very helpful. Another piece is that I can tell when people are kind of staying in this cerebral mind space, and sometimes even literally just taking my hands and bringing it down, like, okay, you're saying a lot of stuff, like just how are you feeling in this moment? Usually the first time I ask that, they tell me I feel that, and when they just give me a thought. And I just keep asking, like, hey, I want to hear actual emotions, and just really get them to calm down, slow down. I think they can, but it just takes some reminding.
Yeah. Zooming out a bit, what do you say to someone on a dating app? I feel like, I'm good on Amazon.com or something. Like it just feels like
Mm-hmm.
icky or something. Is that just
Mm-hmm.
like a maladaptive feeling, or how do you respond to that?
Is that like feeling interchangeable? Yeah, what were the feelings that were coming up?
The people who are reaching out were people she would never be interested in. It feels like too exposed, or it just
Mm-hmm.
feels like it's not how romance should go or something. It shouldn't feel like a marketplace, but maybe we're just projecting into something that doesn't really exist. But you must have heard people have this kind of vibe.
Yeah. I heard two things. One is that why do these people think that I would be interested in them?
Yeah.
So I can respond to that. The second piece is like, how do I hold this sense of romance, right, or self identity, even in a place that can seem really transactional?
Yeah. Yeah.
So on the first piece, I mean, frankly, sometimes looking for your partner can feel like a needle in the haystack, especially on dating apps. And I actually think that that's correct. What I keep telling clients is that most people are not a fit. You are an extremely unique person. And I tell them then all the ways that they are fascinating if they have forgotten. And you are looking for someone who really understands you and who really loves you for who you are. And there's maybe not everybody is going to fit that. So when you're swiping, it is true. Sometimes if you only swipe on 10, even less than 10% of people, that might actually be normal. You may just have a really clear attunement for what you want. So I actually think that can be okay. And if you are really clear on these are my values, this is what I really care about, and you're sticking to that, that's actually a normal experience.
Yeah.
In terms of feeling like a commodity, I would then get really curious about one, what their profile looks like, and two, what kind of conversations they're having. Does your profile look like a commodity, or are you showing you in all of your rating colors and all the ways in which you are unique? Most times I look at people's profiles, they're not unique enough. They're putting out that weak magnet we were talking about. And then the other thing is that, okay, if you tell me, because I've heard people tell me this too, oh my God, texting is so boring. I hate texting. We talk about the same thing. Talk about something that's really deep and interesting. Imagine you were already friends with this person for 3 months. What might you ask them then? And how can you just pretend like we're not actually strangers? I think there's actually a card game based on this. And if you can do that, then you can have the conversations you want. Like, you don't have to feel like a commodity. Choose to be uncommoditizable, if that's a word. I don't know if it is.
What do you say to people who say something like, "Hey, is it possible just that like the best people are not on the apps, or that, and
Oh,
maybe it's related to this
yeah.
idea that if they feel that they're on the apps, then everyone in dating is always trying to project, abundance or lack of struggle, right? Because that's not attractive. Some people
Mhm.
are comfortable being on it because it's like, what does that imply about their, neediness or something?
Yeah.
Yeah, how do you think about this?
I think whenever I hear people say that, oh, maybe I don't want to put myself out there, I don't want to seem too desperate, I first reflect it back to them. You want to find an exceptional life partner. This is someone you're going to spend 50 years of your life with. You will adopt their family. You might have your own family together. You will share your finances, maybe all your life secrets. So if you want to get someone exceptional, doesn't it behoove you to get the best? It's like the same thing as going out on LinkedIn and trying to proactively reach out to people to network. I'm not just sitting here like waiting for the inbound request to come. Like we all know that being proactive helps. I think the other piece that really stands out to me, this is carving from my MIT days. Have you heard of the stable marriage problem?
No, what is it?
So it's a computer science algorithm that helps people match with each other. I'm going to give you the really brief overview of it, but the key takeaway here is that if you always are proactive and reach out, you will get your worst best option. If you are only reactive, you will get your best worst option. And like I said, like choosing your life partner is going to help you with your financial success, your emotional success, your family success. So why wouldn't you choose the very best option for yourself?
Yeah.
And to put it more concretely, when I look at or hear about all the different people who have found meaningful long-term relationships, they all have been on an app at some point, most all of them.
Yeah.
So the people are there.
So what do you say to someone who's like, or how do you think about sort of the concept of quote unquote settling? Like, how do you know? Yeah, it's like there's so much options out there. This person seems interesting. They make me feel good, but like, do they hit all these boxes, et cetera? Is there someone out there who's a better fit? How do you work with clients on that or think about that?
Yeah, when I hear you say that, I really hear maximizer energy coming out there. I really don't think people when they say they are settling or they don't want to settle, I get really curious about what that actually means for them. What I want people to get more, I would say open-minded, not settly.
Yeah.
More open-minded about is like what is the like external package of this person look like? What are their interests? Maybe they don't have the same interests as you, or they look different than what you expected. But I don't want you to settle on what your non-negotiables are. Right? Like if you really want someone who has a growth mindset, who really values having a family, that's super important. That's their life every day. So to me, I want you to settle or be open-minded about the things that don't matter and like really focus on the things that do matter and try to get the information as early as possible, including in your profile when you're swiping.
Yeah. Logan Yuri, my friend and dating coach, or
Yes, she's amazing.
dating coach. Yeah. Her thing is, don't date the prom king. What you look for in high school might be different than, or is different than what you look for in a husband.
Oh yeah, and I've definitely seen, and I can admit myself having fallen in this trap for a long time. See clients too; they're looking for like boyfriend or girlfriend qualities. I think of it as like shiny qualities, like ooh, they have this like fancy job or they look this way. But we want to look at life partner qualities instead.
Yeah. And one thing you also say is this idea of like, even if you find the perfect person, if you don't have the right mindset, you might mess it up. So how do people mess things up, or how do you work with them to prevent it, even if they do find the right person?
Yeah. I think the ways I hear people quote unquote mess it up could be are usually about the actual third thing that's happening or created between these two people. So when I hear a lot of people talk about dating, it's a lot of just like I'm this person and they're this person, like do these two things match? And they don't talk enough about the third thing that's happening, which is the relationship that's being built between the two of you. So I want to help people get data about how this person treats you, what your relationship dynamic is like as early as possible. That's why hardballing is so important because it gets you data about when I share something vulnerable about myself, how does this person respond? So if you don't have those skills, you're waiting till date 10 to find out like, oh, actually we're looking for different things in life. Or when I bring up something vulnerable, this person actually doesn't, support me in that way. Those are things we could have figured out on date one. And a lot of times people are coming to me at a point in their life where they really are serious about dating. They want to find this person on some specific timeline. And so us saving those 9 days makes a huge difference in someone's life. I hear all the time, and I was experiencing this myself too, just 3 6 month long situationships where we could have figured out from date 1 or 2 that this was not the fit. So that's why I think those actual communication skills, those assessment skills are the things that matchmaking or just the dating app alone can't solve. I know a lot of products or solutions in that space are trying to solve that too, but really the strategy of connecting and communicating is super important, I think undervalued.
It's interesting because there's this balance where you don't want to end up in a long-term situationship, but you also don't want to sort of, force something way too soon that might kill the energy, or you want something, you want things to feel organic and sort of, right? Like
Yeah, I think there are people do ask me about that too. I think that's one of the most common pushbacks I hear from hardball. Like, oh, Joyce, this is too intense. Like, I don't want to scare people away. And then I just ask them, okay, let's imagine your future partner, future husband, wife, partner, whatever you want to use. Ostensibly, they are alive right now. I assume you want to date someone around your age. Okay, they are alive. Imagine you are them receiving this message from you. Hey, I'm looking for something really serious. I just want to respect our time. How would they respond? And usually they tell me, oh, yeah, they probably respond with a lot of kindness. Great. I'm giving this tool to assess someone's kindness that's way more powerful than them saying on their profile that they value kindness. So I don't know. I think that's the most beautiful, organic thing I can think of. Actually feeling someone's kindness and how they respond to you.
Got it. And so what is the tool to measure kindness again? It's a sort of, it almost it sounds like a job interview or something. It's like a question as it relates to it, or it's like, yes, say more about how you assess these different traits.
Yeah, yeah. So specifically for kindness and care, I mean, you can literally ask someone like, "Oh, how did you show kindness and care to your former partner? What ways what do you need to feel kindness and care from your partner?" But more objectively, the hardballing technique is sending that message, and I'm clear this is a statement, not a question. Hey, I just want to be upfront with you. I'm looking for a long-term relationship. And if that's not what you're looking for, that's totally cool. I just want to respect your time and be upfront. That's one way to gauge someone's reaction, but effectively, it's anything vulnerable. So, one thing I love doing is having people debrief the previous date or the previous interaction. So when I saw your profile or when I saw this funny picture on your profile, I felt curious about this, or I felt particularly excited to see you today. Or the last time when we hung out, when you know, stayed out late with me to like help me with this thing that I was really struggling with, I felt really cared for. Sharing some of those actual feelings about how I feel about you is how we can actually get data on how they'll respond to you with care and kindness.
Yeah, that's interesting. The zooming out. So one thing we also wanted to cover was you have some interesting thoughts as it relates to attachment theory and how people understand the concept. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, oh man, I've read so much on attachment theory. I can't count the number of my fingers how many times I've seen attachment theory, Instagram reels or TikToks, which I know people are sending around all the time. I think this framework is really powerful in a lot of ways, especially people can see themselves in that and recognize something different. But I think it's way too often misused and people are using it as a crutch or a limiting belief. And I will say I was guilty of this too. I was definitely saying this back when I was single, and I hear people saying this too in coaching. Oh, because of my anxious attachment style, because of my avoidant attachment style, I'm like this. I'm an anxious, they're an avoidant, therefore we're in an anxious avoidant loop. And if we just look at that objectively, taking us a little bit heady for a second, that's kind of just like completely personifying or identifying with that. Rather, everybody exhibits so many different flavors of this behavior. Sometimes I might be a little bit anxious, sometimes I might be a little bit avoidant, sometimes I might be a little bit secure. And so, how can I just look at this as different behaviors I'm exhibiting and adjust my behavior rather than saying, oh, because this is the way that my parents raised me when I was a tiny baby, therefore I'm always going to have this problem forever? That's just such a holdback. Like, instead, I want people to have more of a growth mindset. Oh, I can just identify these behaviors I want to change to be more secure. And that's what I want to focus on versus like, oh, I'm anxious, they're avoidant, or I'm avoidant, they're anxious, therefore we are doomed.
Right. And sometimes it's like, you'll be exhibiting behavior in response to a specific person or a specific situation, maybe, yeah, exhibiting another behavior in response to someone else, but less so on, I am this, and more, the dynamic is this,
Or it's like it's my avoidant attachment that's coming out. I'm like, no, sometimes you just show up in this way and that might come from past history. So how can we just focus on this behavior? What do you want to do differently? What can we do to encourage you to take that different step? Or even just tell the other person you're talking to, you're dating, like, hey, when you did this thing, I actually felt a bit nervous. I think this might be from a past relationship or something.
Yeah. So let me tell you what I've gathered just from listening to you speak about what coaching looks like, what your coaching looks like, and then you can, flush it out. So if someone comes to you and is like, hey, I want to find my partner in the next year or so, or two or something, and sometimes maybe even sooner, then what you'll do is you'll be like, okay, dating apps are a great, sourcing tool, not the only one, but it's a great one. Let's, work on the profile. You probably haven't, put that much thought into, sort of making yourself, more presentable, but also self-selecting the type of person that you want. Oh, by the way, do you know the type of person that you want? You're going to say, physical attributes, but how does this person make you feel? What is sort of the North Star feeling? So you do more self-awareness. Like what are things that haven't worked in previous? Let's look for the opposite here if they're common patterns. And then, you have a inbox zero. So then it's like, okay, you got the profile. Well, then it's like, okay, now you're matching, you're speaking with people, you do some coaching on how to convert into first dates. And then you're recommending, going on dates with some regularity. I don't know if there's a cadence that you recommend. And then after every date, you're sort of like almost like an executive recruiter, perhaps. Like, what did you think of this person? You talk through the sort of, do you want to continue going on dates with this person? Like, it's sort of like, moving down the funnel. Is this a good lead? Well, also like, strategy of how to, make yourself attractive to that lead. I guess flush out more like, what am I missing, or how would you edit this characterization of what your coaching looks like, or what it looks like when someone, is making dating the biggest priority, or a real priority in their life?
Yeah, I loved a lot of what you said. I feel very heard, Erik, from what you shared. I would say that you highlighted, like, I would say, like, the middle three areas that I coach people on. This is literally my syllabus. There's 5 areas. I'm going to use some techie or businessy terms. Number 1 is just setting up your operating system. So, unlike a lot of other coaches or therapists, I set up clear 3-month programs. You have OKRs, objective key results, that you want to achieve, that you want to be true in 3 months from now. The objectives are how you want to feel about yourself. The key results are measurable outcomes. So we're setting up your O's, we have your OKRs, and you have a process every week to keep yourself accountable. I actually score my own OKRs every Sunday. I have all my clients do the same thing. So that's setting up your operating system. Step 2 is, I want you to get your sourcing engine together, because we need to start getting some data. So across the 3 sourcing channels, meeting people in real life, setups, dating apps, I want you to get in a clear rhythm where you are able to fish on your own. That's going really well. Step 3, or part 3, is you getting clear on what you want. I want you to create your list of 10 non-negotiables, all those things that didn't work, and what's the opposite of that? What are the questions you're going to ask on every date? What are your other deal breakers? When you think about how you want to feel with your future partner, what is that North Star feeling? What do you want to feel inside? The 4th piece is then the actual connection. So I love doing this part. It's not just me coaching them, like, oh, what do you think of this date? And like, let's refine that. I have people go on mock dates together. So I put 2 clients in the same Zoom room. I have them have an initial 30-minute conversation together. We pause every now and then. They give each other feedback. I give them feedback on how they can connect even better, so that they can then get this rich data and use that in their real life. And a lot of my clients have really loved this. And then the last piece, which we didn't talk about, but I think is so, so juicy and so fascinating to me about dating, is that when we start talking about dating, most clients actually start sharing with me about other aspects of their life. Oh, I realize that I'm not proactive in going for what I want in my dating life. I'm seeing how that's showing up in my career or in my life or with my family. And so a lot of times people leave me from coaching not just feeling more confident about their dating life, but that they've created these other results in other parts of their life. So we get clear on their life priorities. So that, again, those are the 5. Set up your OS, set up your sourcing engine. Let's get clear on what you want. 4 is actually creating the empathetic communication between those 2, developing your skills for relational empathy. And then finally, what are your overall life priorities and vision look like?
It's fascinating because people typically, will go to a business coach or a therapist, but end up talking a lot about their relationships. And in some ways you're doing also the opposite, which is,
Yes.
to you for dating and relationships, but also, of course, the better you come there, the more it affects your just overall life as well, and translates to, which is really interesting. It'd be fascinating if the people you set up on mock dates ended up together.
I know people are always curious about that. I'll definitely share if that happens.
Yeah. Say more about the first step. The OKRs. Like, what are sample OKRs? Like,
Yeah.
not
So
everyone.
I even have like a sheet of all OKRs that my clients have actually accomplished with me. So for dating, Usually it's I feel something about my dating life. I feel optimistic, or I feel hopeful, I feel confident, I feel comfortable, I feel peaceful about my dating life by the specific date. And then I have key results. These are camera measurable outputs that someone else can look at your life and say, this is true. These are the things that need to be true for you to feel this way. So for example, if I want to feel optimistic about dating, that might look like I've been on 3 days with one promising partner. I have a list of 10 non-negotiables that I use on every single date to ask them and see if they're going to be compatible with me. And maybe that means that I've asked 2 people out in real life and have gone on at least 1 or 2 days with them. So that could look like the portfolio of OKRs they might have for specifically dating. Sometimes they'll split that out. Sometimes want to bring career in that there as well. But that's like a common set of goals one might have for dating.
If a client is like, how many dates should I be going on? What is your answer to that question?
So I generally recommend, and again, I'm coaching people who are pretty busy and have other priorities in their life too. I recommend their roster, if I can use that term, a roster of up to 3 people at a time. Because after more than that, it's kind of hard to keep track of people, and you want to give people our due attention and care. So that might look like anywhere from 1 to 3 dates per week. And if you're really busy, I help them figure out how to get like one really, really good date a week with even more filtering.
And 1 to 3 dates. And so what is, okay, so the roster is such a funny term.
Yeah.
So you are dating, you're going on dates, and basically you stop dating when you realize that they're not, like, you ask one of these questions and they fail, basically, or like, what is sort of the screening process?
I
Or
love
you
that.
get-
I love that. So I have people answer post-date questions. I know Logan has something similar. I've created my own related to this like MECE framework here. So MECE, for people who are not former management consultants like myself, calling myself out, is mutually exclusive, completely exhaustive. So this framework is about that. And so I see compatibility across 4 dimensions: physical attraction, emotional attraction, intellectual attraction, and life goal compatibility. So what I mean by that is like, okay, are you physically interested in this person? Do you want to be with them physically? Number 2 is, do you feel cared for? Are you feeling emotionally connected with this person? Third is the intellectual stimulation. Do I find this person very interesting, intellectually engaging? And the fourth piece is, of course, like, I want to have kids and a family, and they want to too, or they don't, and this lines up. So those questions, I have people choose from a big bank across those 4 dimensions. I want you to pick the 5 that matter most to you, and you are going to answer them after every single date, and we are going to talk about it. And when you finally get to a point, or hopefully never, of course, finally get to a point where you're like, I am not curious enough to invest another 2 hours in this date, that is when we decide to let things go. So I try to bring it in a curiosity driven framework. It's like when you ask me about, oh, do I swipe on this person or not if they have a mid profile? It's like, am I curious enough to invest more time? If not, then it's time to go.
Yeah. Do you have any advice on how to get setups, or is there anything non-obvious on doing setups well?
Yes, I love this question. I do have my own playbook for setups and IRL and for dating apps as well. For setups, I suggest 2 things that come to mind. I honestly, the most common issue I see is people are not asking enough. So I'll give one tip for when you're not asking enough, and the other one is if you are asking, you want to get a little bit better at it. So the first one is, if you're not asking enough, I remember coaching someone on this recently. Just think about if you were your friend and you heard yourself asking for a setup, like, how do you want to feel, or how are they going to feel? They're like, oh my God, I'm so honored that you trust me to ask for a setup. So can you develop some more confidence around that and trust that if someone is organically bringing up dating in the conversation, be like, oh, you can also help me with this instead of asking me all the time about this by setting me up with someone great. On the piece where you were already asking for setups, I like to throw in a really memorable incentive. It's just to be funny. So for example, back when I was doing this, I probably asked over 100 people for setups. I said, okay, do you know anyone exceptional? And I gave a statement of what I'm looking for. And if we do end in a relationship, I will take you out to Ben News, this 3 Michelin star restaurant in San Francisco. So most people are not actually like, haha, I need you to do that. But it's just so funny and memorable that they keep me more top of mind than they might if someone else just asked.
Yeah. Lucy Guo tweeted like $1 million bounty to anyone who are her partner. So if you do have means, yeah, it is interesting. There was this book like 15 years ago, which you've definitely heard of, if not read, called The Game, which was about this sort of community of men who were like internet, nerds and gamers, and they kind of invented, who were interested in learning how to date, and they invented their own language, and they would say things like, I'm going to go Sarge and, approach and kiss close and run the cube, all these like crazy terms that I have no idea, what they mean. And you also, because you work with tech people, because you work with consultants, they already have this language that you could then just like readily apply to dating in a way that might sound funny at first, in the same way that, the words that I use sounds funny. But if you're like of a certain lingo and these terms, like there is a lot of applicability or just shorthand that is easy to it's like, to our earlier point, it's like, if someone's like being really deliberate about their career, there's a whole language and terminology around it. To be serious about dating, we haven't really developed that, and so you're sort of, borrowing language that people already understand while creating, your own playbooks around it. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah, thanks for calling that out. What were the ones that stood out to you? I think it was like MECE, top of funnel, conversion. I think we might have talked about it or not.
Yeah, I also wanted to ask: is there any more playbooks that we haven't got in, sort of gearing towards the end of the podcast? If not, and any other playbooks you have that we haven't even like touched upon? Or
I have so many playbooks. I'm just getting started by sharing more and more of them publicly. But yeah, I literally have this mega document that is Joyce's coaching playbook. For each piece of the syllabus, there's many sub documents underneath each of them. I'm so excited to share more and more of that with people.
Yeah, you're inventing your own dating school, or like
yes, dating academy. I mean, this is really true, and I think this is one of the things I struggled a lot with. I know Logan talks about this a little bit too, and I really love what she says here as well, where I felt part of why I felt so downtrodden and dejected when I was single and trying to date was because I thought that, when my friends got into relationships, it just like happened, and I'm supposed to be able to do this too. And I'm just like super type A, gung ho, overachiever, amazing in my career. I love being a PM. Why am I not figuring this out? And I think I've now figured out a way to take all of those frameworks and those terms you just talked about and apply it to something that I actually think is frankly much more important than a lot of the day-to-day decisions we might make in our jobs, and help people find those exceptional relationships. So I'm really, really excited to bring more of that to life and basically be that person or be the resource that I wish I had when I was struggling.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, then in closing, is there anything and I want to give you a chance to plug your coaching as well, but is there anything we haven't talked about that is top of mind that you want to make sure you leave the audience with?
I think what really matters is just always come back to yourself. You are going to spend more time with this person than literally anyone in your life. So if you forget everything I said on this podcast, which I hope they don't, just focus on how do you want to feel every single day, whether it's in your career, your life, with your parents, or with your partner. How do you choose the things in your life that make you feel that way? If you leave with just that, I hope that can inspire you to take some different action this week. And you can find more about what I have to say. And I'll, of course, make more and more of my playbook public on my Instagram, Substack, Twitter, LinkedIn. It's all at the Joyce Zhang.
Awesome. And last question, and maybe I'll take this off if it doesn't flow up, but I'm curious, what do you think is the biggest bottleneck for people? Is it just accountability? Is it like the limiting belief part? Is it the knowledge? Is it all the above, or case by case? But like, what do you think? Because I love that you provide this like sort of all of the above. But yeah, what do you think is really holding people back the most?
First of all, I was going to say, I feel like you're doing such an excellent job at synthesizing everything I'm throwing at you. So this is excellent. I think that it does vary a lot by client. Some people are more stuck in the mindset. They're like, oh, I'm not attractive enough, or what about my age? And they're really stuck in that. Some people might just be like, okay, I'm super confident. I ask people out all the time, but like it's not working. So they need more tactical strategy to start off with. But I think it all comes back to mindset. Because like I can give you all the playbooks and the tactics, but if you are not confident or believe in yourself, if you are not deeply, madly in love with yourself every day, how are you going to find someone who's deeply, madly in love with you? So that is the work that I think is magical in coaching. Because if I can get you to think about yourself and your life and dating differently, you can figure out all the tactics on your own. This is not rocket science. So I think of coaching sometimes as like a massage. So I'm your masseuse. I'm getting in there. I'm finding out what's the specific knot that you have. And I'm massaging you there until you just release, because you already have all the answers and the wisdom inside. So you just got to get those clouds in your mind off the way where I'm not good enough, or dating is so hard, or like I hate this as a chore. Just a little more positive and optimistic mindset, and you will do the things that you need to do. So, I mean, I can give trackers, playbooks, but I think if people really change their mindset, which is the harder and I know more challenging work, and what I think coaching is best suited for, that will help you create all the results on your own.
What do you say to someone who's like, there's just not that many people I'm attracted to? Like I've sort of, it's just hard to get excited about going to these people, or just my standards are so high, to your earlier point, that there's only X amount of people in the city who I could feasibly date. Like, what do you say to those people?
Oh man, I'm tickled and I'm laughing because I remember one time, one of my very good friends and we actually went through, this is back when I was single, like trying to calculate, okay, how many men in SF are actually relevant? And I guess it's fine to do as an exercise, but when I reflect back on that experience, like that left me just feeling even more dejected and hopeless about dating. And like, even if that's true, it doesn't really matter, because I'm looking for one person. This is the way in which dating is the opposite of sales. I'm not trying to like convert everybody. I'm just trying to convert one amazing person. So that's fine if there's only 10 people in this entire city that I would be amazing with. How do I just find that pool and focus on fishing in that pool versus feeling frustrated that I'm in this big pool and I can't get what I'm looking for? So I really try to focus back on that piece of just, okay, I know what I'm looking for. It is normal that it feels more like a needle in a haystack. How do I just improve the haystack so that there's more needles in the haystack that I'm just looking in, period?
Right. And so that's a combination of like better filtering on the apps, going to events or communities that might have these people, and then asking for setups for people who would know them or be in those pools.
Okay, I love that you're asking this, because this reminds me of a really fun framework that I've come up with. I ask people again to think about their future partner. How do you think they're spending their time? First thing, they're just like, oh, they're probably working a lot. I'm like, okay, great. Outside of work, what are they doing to spend their time? They're probably out there trying to meet you too. What do you think they're doing to try to meet you? It's like, oh, I guess they're also on dating apps too, probably. They're probably going to these kind of events. Okay, great. When we look at the Venn diagram of how they're spending their time and what you love doing, where you show up as your best self, what is the middle of that Venn diagram, and how do you spend more time doing those things? I think that might also answer your dating app question from earlier.
Yeah, no, that's a great way to wrap. Joyce, thanks so much for sharing your learnings and wisdom with us.
Thank you, Erik.
This has been great.
Thanks for listening to Modern Relationships. Please make sure you're following on Apple, Spotify, or YouTube. If you have a chance, leave us a review or comment on this episode to let me know who else you'd like to hear from on this show. Modern Relationships is a podcast from Turpentine, the network behind Econ 102, Upstream, and Turpentine VC.